Welcome to today's Catholic Daily Readings from Christus Dominus Bread of Life. A reading from the book of Genesis. Gather together and listen, O sons of Jacob. Listen to Israel, your father. Judah, your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be at the neck of your enemies. The sons of your father will bow down in reverence before you. Judah is a lion's young one. My son, you have gone up to the prey. You will rest, you will lie down like a lion, and just as a lioness, who would rouse him? The scepter will not be taken away from Judah, nor the commander from his thigh, until he who will be sent arrives, and he will be the expectation of the nations.
God, with your judgment endow the king, with your justice the Son who reigns. He governs the people with righteousness, he answers the cry of the afflicted. The throne is not seized by force, it is established by decree. From your hand comes the rule, from your word comes authority. Justice shall flourish in his time, and fullness of peace forever. Justice shall flourish in his time, and fullness of peace forever. The mountains yield peace to the people. The hills answer with justice. He defends the broken and forgotten. He saves the children of the poor. The oppressor's breath is cut short. The lowly are lifted to stand. This is not mercy delayed, this is judgment arriving. Justice shall flourish in his time, and fullness of peace forever. Justice shall flourish in his time, and fullness of peace forever. The poor are not pleading for scraps. The king has entered his domain, and nothing remains untouched. From sea to sea he establishes dominion, from the river to the ends of the earth. Kings fall silent before his presence, nations bend beneath his word. Not by spectacle, not by noise, but by unbreakable right. Justice shall flourish in his time, and fullness of peace forever. Justice shall flourish in his time, and fullness of peace forever. Flourish in his time, and fullness of peace forever. May his name be blessed forever, as long as the sun endures. In him all tribes find their reckoning, All nations speak what is true. The king stands, the order is set. Justice has taken the throne.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the book of the lineage of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham conceived Isaac, and Isaac conceived Jacob, and Jacob conceived Judah and his brothers, and Judah conceived Peretz and Zerah by Tamar, and Peretz conceived Hezron, and Hezron conceived Aram, and Aram conceived Aminadab, and Aminadab conceived Nahshon, and Nahshon conceived Salmon, and Salmon conceived Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz conceived Obed by Ruth. And Obed conceived Jesse, and Jesse conceived David the king, and David the king conceived Solomon by her who had been the wife of Uriah, and Solomon conceived Rehoboam, and Rehoboam conceived Abijah, and Abijah conceived Asa, and Asa conceived Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat conceived Joram, and Joram conceived Uzziah, and Uzziah conceived Jotham, and Jotham conceived Ahaz, and Ahaz conceived Hezekiah, and Hezekiah conceived Manasseh, and Manasseh conceived Amon, and Amon conceived Josiah. And Josiah conceived Jeconiah and his brothers in the transmigration of Babylon. And after the transmigration of Babylon, Jeconiah conceived Shealtiel, and Shealtiel conceived Zerubbabel, and Zerubbabel conceived Abiud, and Abiud conceived Eliakim, and Eliakim conceived Azor, and Azor conceived Zadok, and Zadok conceived Achim, and Achim conceived Eliud, and Eliud conceived Eleazar, and Eleazar conceived Mathan, and Mathan conceived Jacob. And Jacob conceived Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who is called Christ. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations, and from David to the transmigration of Babylon are 14 generations, and from the transmigration of Babylon to the Christ are 14 generations. Join us for today's reflection. You just heard one of the most boring passages in the entire Bible. 42 generations of names you cannot pronounce, people you have never heard of, a list that seems designed to make your eyes glaze over. Most people skip it. Preachers avoid it. Bible studies jump straight to the good stuff in verse 18. But what if that list is actually a scandal? What if the boring genealogy is hiding the most shocking truth about who God is and who he came to save? Look closer. Hidden among all those male names are 5 women. In a culture where lineage traced exclusively through fathers, Matthew goes out of his way to include these specific women. Not Sarah, not Rebekah, not Leah. The matriarchs you would expect to find in the family tree of the Messiah are nowhere to be seen. Instead, you get Tamar, who dressed as a prostitute to trick her father-in-law into getting her pregnant. You get Rahab, an actual prostitute from a pagan city. You get Ruth, a foreigner from a nation cursed by God. You get Bathsheba, identified not by her own name but as the wife of Uriah, the man King David murdered to cover up his adultery. And then you get Mary, an unmarried pregnant teenager in a culture where that could get you stoned to death. This is the family tree of the Son of God. These are not footnotes or embarrassments to explain away. Matthew put them here on purpose. He is preaching a sermon before Jesus even shows up. Here is what he is saying. If you think you are too broken for God to use, look at this list. If you think your past disqualifies you from God's plan, look at this list. If you think your failures, your shame, your family dysfunction, your secrets make you unworthy of grace, look at this list. God did not choose a pristine bloodline. He chose a messy one. He waded into the dysfunction, the scandal, the sin, and he redeemed it all. The Messiah came not in spite of the broken people in his ancestry, but through them. The psalm today sings of a king who will rescue the poor, defend the afflicted, crush the oppressor. Justice shall flourish in his time, and fullness of peace forever. This king does not come from a perfect family. He comes from a family that needed rescuing themselves. So where does this leave you? Probably somewhere in that genealogy. You have got Tamar's desperation somewhere in your story. You have got Rahab's past. You have got Ruth's outsider status. You have got David and Bathsheba's failure. Good, that means you qualify. Advent is not about cleaning yourself up so Jesus can finally arrive. It is about recognizing that he comes precisely into the mess. He always has. His own family tree proves it. The question is not whether you are good enough. The question is whether you are honest enough to admit you are not. That is how you get into this family, not by being worthy of it, but by admitting you need it. Maybe you grew up in a family where everything looked perfect from the outside, but was falling apart behind closed doors. Maybe you are the black sheep, the one whose name comes up at family gatherings with a sigh and a shake of the head. Maybe you have done things you have never told anyone, things that would change how people see you if they knew. Welcome to the family of God. You are in excellent company. The scepter did not depart from Judah. Through every failure, every scandal, every generation of messy people making messy decisions, the promise held, and it still holds, for you, right now, wherever you are listening to this from. This Advent, stop trying to make yourself presentable for Jesus. He has already seen your genealogy. He knows what is hiding in your family tree, in your browser history, in the parts of your story you never share, and he came anyway. Not to a pristine manger in a perfect town, but to a borrowed feeding trough in the back of a crowded house, born to an unwed mother from a scandalous bloodline. That is the kind of Savior we have. That is the kind of family we belong to.